Underestimated champions. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Captain Maya Chen entered. Her weathered combat uniform stood out starkly against the sleek, iridescent attire of the alien representatives. At 53, Maya's face carried the lines of someone who had seen too many battlefields: Earth's water wars, the Arctic conflict, and the resource rebellions. A lifetime of fighting against superior forces had taught her lessons that the gathered aliens couldn't begin to comprehend. High Commander Zilfar, his crystalline exoskeleton glittering under the chamber's lights, regarded her with thinly veiled contempt. Captain Chen, the Council acknowledges Earth's enthusiasm to contribute to our defense efforts. However, we have reviewed your military capabilities, and frankly, they are rather amusing. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Some aliens didn't even bother hiding their derision. Your species still relies on chemical propellants and physical projectiles, continued Zilfar, lifting a standard-issue Earth sidearm with 2 of his 4 upper limbs. The Galactic Alliance abandoned such primitive approaches millennia ago. Maya maintained her composure, standing at parade rest. With respect, Commander, different tools serve different purposes. Indeed, and your tools belong in a museum. Zilfar set the weapon down with a dismissive click. Earth will be classified as a Tier 4 civilization, protected status but with minimal technological exchange. Your military contributions will not be required. Before Maya could respond, emergency lights flashed throughout the chamber. A holographic display materialized in the center of the room, showing a massive fleet of biomechanical ships entering the outer reaches of Alliance space. The Vraxian horde, whispered a serpentine diplomat near Maya. They've returned. Maya watched as the council erupted into panicked discussions. The Vraxians, she had read about them in the briefing materials, a hive mind species that consumed entire worlds, converting all available biomass and technology into more of themselves. Their last invasion, 50 years ago, had nearly broken the Alliance before they mysteriously retreated. 3 days later, Maya found herself summoned to the Alliance flagship Eternal Light. The initial Vraxian attacks had been devastating. 3 Alliance outposts had fallen in rapid succession, their advanced energy weapons proving increasingly ineffective against the Vraxian vessels. Their hulls adapt, explained Admiral Kaspora, a blue-skinned humanoid with 6 eyes arranged in a circle around her head. Each time we engage, our weapons become less effective. They analyze energy signatures and develop countermeasures within minutes. The holographic display showed Alliance ships in perfect formation, firing synchronized energy beams at Vraxian vessels. Initially effective, the beams seemed to do less damage with each passing minute. Your tactics are predictable, Maya said, studying the display. You're fighting like you have technological superiority, but against an adaptive enemy, that's a weakness, not a strength. Admiral Kaspora's eyes narrowed. And I suppose humans would do better with their projectile weapons and primitive explosives. Perhaps, Maya replied. We might not have your technology, but humans have been fighting wars against superior forces for our entire history. We've learned to be unpredictable. Unpredictability is chaos, stated High Commander Zilfar, who had joined them. The Alliance military follows precise, proven methodologies developed over thousands of years. And the Vraxians are counting on that, Maya countered. They're studying your patterns and adapting. You need to break those patterns. The argument might have continued if not for another emergency alert. A Vraxian scout force had been detected near Outpost Sigma 9, just 1 jump from the Alliance core worlds. Allow me to demonstrate, Maya suggested. Give me 1 ship and a small crew. Let me engage the scouts my way. Admiral Kaspora and Zilfar exchanged glances. 1 ship, the Admiral finally agreed. But when you fail, human, you will accept your Tier 4 status without further argument. 24 hours later, Maya stood on the bridge of the Swift Justice, a small Alliance patrol vessel. Her hand-picked crew consisted of 3 other human veterans and a minimum complement of Alliance personnel to operate the ship's systems. The humans had brought crates of their own equipment, much to the confusion of the Alliance engineers. "Captain, the Vraxian scouts are on long-range sensors," reported Lieutenant Jackson, a former guerrilla warfare specialist from the Arctic conflict. "3 vessels, standard hunting formation." Maya nodded. "Power down all non-essential systems. Divert energy to thrusters only. No weapons." The Alliance crew members looked alarmed. "Captain, standard engagement protocols," began the ship's Alliance liaison. "We're not following standard protocols," Maya interrupted. "That's exactly what they expect. Lieutenant Rodriguez, status on the asteroid field." "Perfect cover, Captain. Dense enough to mask our signature, scattered enough to maneuver." Maya smiled. "Take us in, minimal thrust. Silent running." The Swift Justice slipped into the asteroid field, powered down to near invisibility on sensors. The Vraxian scouts, expecting the usual direct Alliance response, swept past their position. "Now we wait," Maya said. Hours passed. The Vraxian scouts completed their sensor sweep of the area and began to regroup for their jump back to the main fleet. "They're aligning for departure," reported Sergeant Wei, monitoring the tactical display. "Formation is tight. They're not expecting any resistance." "Perfect." Maya leaned forward. "Deploy the mines." Earlier, the human crew had modified standard Alliance sensor buoys into makeshift mines, using Earth-designed explosives. They had scattered these throughout the asteroid field during their entry. "Mines armed," confirmed Rodriguez. "Detonation in 3, 2, 1. The explosions rippled across the asteroid field, not directly hitting the Vraxian vessels, but destabilizing nearby asteroids. Massive rocks tumbled toward the surprised ships, smashing into their hulls before they could react. "Full power to engines," Maya ordered. "Attack pattern Sierra." The Swift Justice surged forward, approaching from the opposite direction of the asteroid impacts. The Alliance weapons officer fired, not the ship's energy cannons but modified railguns installed by the human team. They launched simple metal projectiles at incredible speeds, their composition changing with each volley. The first Vraxian ship, already damaged by asteroid impacts, was pierced through by the projectiles before its adaptive hull could analyze the threat. The second ship began to adapt, but the constantly changing composition of the projectiles kept it from forming effective countermeasures. "They're trying to establish a defensive pattern," Wei observed. "Time to get unpredictable." Maya nodded. "Evasive pattern Delta." Rodriguez, deploy the chaff." Clouds of metallic particles burst from the Swift Justice, confusing Vraxian sensors. The human crew had repurposed Alliance communication relays to broadcast contradictory signals, making it seem like multiple ships were attacking from different vectors. The engagement lasted less than 15 minutes. When it was over, 2 Vraxian scout ships were destroyed, and the third was retreating with severe damage. When the Swift Justice returned to the Alliance flagship, Maya brought video evidence of their engagement. The Alliance command watched in stunned silence. "Impossible," whispered Zylfar. "You used asteroids, metal projectiles, sensor confusion. These are primitive tactics." "Primitive but effective," Maya replied. "The Vraxians are adapted to fight your type of warfare. Organized, technological, predictable. They've never encountered human chaos theory applied to combat." Admiral Kispora studied the tactical data. "Your projectiles constantly changed composition." "Simple metallurgy," Maya explained. "Every 5th round had a different alloy mixture. Nothing fancy, just unpredictable. The Vraxians couldn't establish an adaptive pattern." The Admiral's 6 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep thought among her species. "It seems we may have underestimated Earth's potential contributions." "The Vraxians are coming in force," Maya said. "What worked against scouts won't be enough against their main fleet, but I have more ideas, if you're willing to listen." Zylfar's crystalline features hardened. "You propose we abandon thousands of years of military doctrine based on one successful skirmish. I propose we survive," Maya countered. Your way isn't working. The Vraxians adapt to it, but they've never faced human warfare. She leaned forward, her voice firm with conviction. We humans have been fighting superior forces our entire history. We've learned to be creative, adaptive, and utterly unpredictable. Let us show you how Earth fights when the odds are against us. A tense silence filled the command center. Finally, Admiral Kispora straightened to her full height. Captain Chen, I am provisionally upgrading Earth's status to Tier 2. You will have resources to implement your unconventional strategies. But understand this, if you fail, there may not be an Earth left to return to. Maya nodded grimly. Contact Earth. Tell them to send the veterans. All of them. The old way of war. The Alliance observation deck buzzed with murmurs as the Earth ships arrived. Unlike the sleek, uniformly designed Alliance vessels, the human fleet was a hodgepodge of different designs, retrofitted cargo haulers, modified defense platforms, and hastily upgraded orbital stations now serving as carriers. What they lacked in aesthetic cohesion, they made up for in sheer numbers. 217 vessels, noted Grand Strategist Teln, his holographic form flickering slightly. Impressive mobilization for a Tier 2 civilization. Not ships, corrected Maya. Veterans. Every human aboard those vessels has combat experience. The youngest fought in the resource rebellions. The oldest remember the water wars. The Alliance commanders exchanged glances. They had reviewed Earth's military history, countless conflicts, often between technologically mismatched forces. Humans had an unsettling tendency to prevail despite overwhelming odds. Your veterans have arrived, High Commander Zylfar said, emphasizing the unfamiliar term. What exactly is your strategy, Captain Chen? Maya gestured to the holographic display showing the advancing Vraxian armée. The Vraxians adapt to energy weapons within minutes. Their ships communicate constantly, sharing adaptive information. When one learns, they all learn. She tapped commands into the display, highlighting the Vraxian formation. But they've evolved to counter your type of warfare. Direct, energy-based, and predictable. We're going to fight the old way, the human way. Over the next 3 days, Alliance engineers worked alongside human technicians to implement Maya's strategy. Alliance ships were retrofitted with human-designed railguns and projectile launchers. Targeting systems were deliberately desynchronized. Attack formations were broken up and reorganized into seemingly chaotic patterns that nonetheless followed human guerrilla warfare principles. Most controversial was the modification of Alliance communication systems. The humans installed what they called noise generators, devices that created random fluctuations in transmission patterns. You're deliberately making our communications less efficient, protested the Alliance Communications Director. We're making them less predictable, corrected Colonel Vaughn, a veteran communications specialist from Earth. The Vraxians monitor your transmissions to anticipate your movements. If they can't establish a pattern, they can't adapt effectively. Meanwhile, in a secure section of the Alliance flagship, Maya led a different kind of preparation. Dozens of human veterans, men and women with gray hair and weathered faces, gathered around tactical displays, teaching Alliance officers concepts alien to their military doctrine. Asymmetric warfare, explained Major Rivera, pointing to simulation results. Hit-and-run tactics, false retreats, feigned weaknesses. These aren't just tactics, they're psychological warfare. The Vraxians may be a hive mind, but they still have instincts. We can use those against them. Some Alliance officers embraced the human methods with enthusiasm. Others resisted. But as reports came in of more Vraxian victories against conventional Alliance forces, resistance gradually gave way to desperate acceptance. The human veterans brought something else with them. Something the Alliance had forgotten after millennia of technological warfare, the willingness to sacrifice. Not in the grand, noble sense that Alliance doctrine occasionally referenced, but in the grim, calculated way of soldiers who had seen too many battlefields. Sometimes you lose the battle to win the war, Maya told a stunned Alliance War Council. Sometimes you sacrifice position, or resources, or even lives, because that's what it takes to achieve victory. The Vraxian main fleet arrived at the Halcyon system 4 days later. 12 massive high ships, each surrounded by hundreds of smaller vessels, advanced toward the inner planets where millions of Alliance citizens lived. The battle began conventionally enough. The forward Alliance fleet engaged with standard energy weapons, putting up a determined but ultimately futile defense as the Vraxians quickly adapted. Alliance ships fell back in apparent disarray. The Vraxians pursued, exactly as Maya had predicted they would. Their high ships accelerated, sensing victory, pushing past the debris field created by the initial engagement. Now, Maya ordered from the command deck of the modified Alliance dreadnought Dauntless. The debris field came alive. What the Vraxians had dismissed as destroyed Alliance vessels were actually human ships playing dead, their systems powered down to minimal levels. They awoke now, unleashing salvos of modified missiles and railgun projectiles at point-blank range. The Vraxian adaptation came quickly but not quickly enough. Their hulls, optimized to counter energy weapons, suffered catastrophic damage from the physical impacts. 3 smaller high ships were crippled in the initial barrage. The Alliance's main fleet, which had appeared to retreat in disorder, now reappeared in an entirely new formation, one that made no sense by Alliance doctrine, but perfectly executed the human battle plan. Ships attacked in seemingly random patterns, some using energy weapons, others using projectiles, constantly switching between the two so the Vraxians could never fully adapt to either. Their communication patterns are changing, reported Sergeant Wei, monitoring the Vraxian transmissions. They're confused. The hive mind is trying to establish a coherent response, but our unpredictability is forcing them to constantly shift strategies. The battle raged across the Halcyon system. For every tactic the Vraxians developed, the human veterans had 3 countermeasures ready. When the Vraxians began to adapt to railguns, the humans switched to modified torpedoes. When they adapted to torpedoes, the humans used massive electromagnetic pulses. Most disorienting to the Vraxian hive mind was the human willingness to sacrifice. Ships deliberately took damage to create openings for others. Resources were abandoned as bait for traps. The concept of acceptable losses, anathema to the efficiency-obsessed hive mind, created patterns the Vraxians couldn't predict. 7 hours into the battle, Maya identified the Vraxian command ship, larger than the others. The transport struck the Vraxian command ship's hull at nearly relativistic speed. The kinetic impact alone caused significant damage, but it was the human-designed nuclear device that delivered the killing blow. The explosion ripped through the command ship's core, severing the central node of the hive mind. Across the battlefield, Vraxian ships suddenly lost coordination. Some continued fighting with diminished effectiveness, others drifted aimlessly. The unified threat had become a collection of disconnected vessels, and the Alliance human combined fleet methodically eliminated them. 3 days later, in the repaired Alliance Council chamber, Maya Chen was called forward. Her right arm was now a prosthetic. She and her team had been retrieved from an escape pod, severely injured but alive. The Alliance engineers had managed a last-minute modification to the transport, installing emergency evacuation systems. A necessary sacrifice had been averted by Alliance technology combined with human ingenuity. High Commander Xylthar stood before her, his crystalline exoskeleton now scared from personal participation in the later stages of the battle. Captain Chen, the Galactic Council has reconvened to reassess Earth's status within the Alliance. His voice, once dismissive, now carried unmistakable respect. Your people's military doctrines, while primitive by our technological standards, have proven remarkably effective. We had good teachers, Maya replied. Necessity, desperation, history. When you've spent thousands of years fighting against superior forces, you learn a few tricks. Admiral Kespora stepped forward. Earth is hereby reclassified as a Tier 1 civilization. with full access to Alliance technology and resources. Furthermore, we request that Earth establish a permanent military advisory council to train Alliance forces in your warfare methods. Murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber, the same chamber that had laughed at human warfare mere weeks ago. Maya looked around at the assembled aliens, then at the human veterans standing at attention behind her. Men and women who had fought in Earth's messy, brutal conflicts, who had learned through blood and sacrificed the lessons that the technologically advanced Alliance had forgotten. "We would be honored," she said simply. "The galaxy may have forgotten the old ways of war, but Earth remembers, and next time, we'll be ready." The galaxy had laughed at human warfare. They weren't laughing anymore.